What's good? It's Woog. In this series, we're talking Grammys. We'll go through some of the categories, discuss the nominees, predict winners, and discuss past winners, the Grammys, and its history as we near the date of the ceremony. We'll start with Producer of the Year, non-classical. This has been a year of lesser named but big reputation nominees, especially under-the-radar superstars like Jack Antonoff and 2013's winner of this award, Dan Auerbach of the Black Keys. Here's the deal. The rap and pop producers are now some of the biggest names in the game, even if there are rock producers who match or exceed their resume. For instance, whose names are bigger? Pharrell Williams, Mark Ronson, Max Martin, Danger Mouse, Dr. Luke, Rick Rubin, or Greg Kurstin. Now, Greg Kurstin is probably the least known name to the casual music fan, but he won the Grammy for Producer of the Year in 2017 and 2018. You never know it based on name recognition, but Kurstin is among the most successful and accomplished producers of the past 20 years. This is a year where the names of the nominees might never trend on social media, but who, if you look at their track record, are behind some of the biggest music of the era. The biggest winner in this category's history is Babyface, who won 4 times in the 90s, followed by Quincy Jones, David Foster, and Pharrell Williams, who have won 3 times each. Pharrell won twice as Pharrell Williams and once as one half of the Neptunes, so in totality, 3. The most nominated producer in this category's history is Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis with 11. My God. For those that don't know, Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis were at the helm of the New Jack Swing era, late 80s, early 90s, but their career spans beyond that, both before and after. So Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis have 11 nominations, then David Foster and Quincy Jones with 7, and Babyface with 6. Damn, Babyface won 4 out of 6 times. Legendary stuff. Let's get into this year's nominees. Jack Antonoff, the super producer who also records under the artist name Bleachers. Little spoiler here, Jack Antonoff probably should win this award. He produced Lana Del Rey's Norman Effing Rockwell, the best album of the year according to most critics, which is also up for Album of the Year in this year's Grammys. He produced Taylor Swift's latest album, Lover, and he took on one alternative style project this year, the album Arizona Baby by Kevin Abstract, a member of the rap group Brockhampton. So, 2 huge albums, one being the Album of the Year critically, another being nominated at this year's Grammys for Best Pop Vocal Album, Taylor Swift's Lover is, and an alternative rap project. Even prior to this, Antonoff's been one of the greatest producers of the past 10 years. His first hit was We Are Young by Fun in 2011. Remember how big that #1 smash was? Featuring Janelle Monáe? Since then, he's produced Lorde's 2017 album, Melodrama, which was also nominated for Album of the Year in 2018. He produced some of Taylor Swift's Reputation and 1989 albums, the Grammy-nominated song Brave by Sarah Bareilles, songs by St. Vincent, Pink, Banks, Tegan and Sara, and more. In the past 2 to 3 years especially, he's become one of the most sought-after producers in the business, and his profile is now at an all-time high. Dan Auerbach of the Black Keys produced the Black Keys album Let's Rock. Black Keys is about 5 years removed from being one of the hottest rock bands in the game. In fact, they are one of the last big, true blue rock bands in music. Sorry to fans of 21 Pilots or Imagine Dragons, I'm talking about the kind of rock music that isn't flooded with the pop music production trends. The Black Keys grew in popularity from 2002 to 2008 and then hit rock star status in 2010, even headlining Coachella in 2012. We're now about 5 to 7 years outside of that period for them, and they just dropped their first album in 5 years. Aside from the Black Keys' work, Auerbach's 2019 production includes producing entire albums for a few other artists, including Yola's Walk Through Fire, earning Yola a nomination this year for Best New Artist, and he produced for Night Beats, this cool psych rock band whose concert we actually shot in Pomona just a few years ago. Auerbach definitely did his thing this year, and producing Grammy-nominated music helps, but I don't think he's got the strongest claim out of this year's list of nominees. By the way, he also releases his own music outside of Black Keys. We shot a performance at a festival put on by the Growlers Band. Good performance, he's got a lot of quality solo music, and produces for a lot of other artists. John Hill, the super underrated producer who has worked with some of the who's who in indie pop over the past 12 years or so. He produced Feel It Still by Portugal the Man a couple years ago. Ooh, I'm a since 1966 now. That song actually took from the Marvelettes' Dear Mr. Postman. So the Marvelettes and Mr. Postman's producer, songwriter actually get paid a royalty for that Portugal the Man Feel It Still song. The most notable album that John Hill produced this year was Cage the Elephant's latest. He produced for more artists than the other nominees this year, except for maybe Ricky Reed, but he's made fewer albums than, say, Jack Antonoff and Dan Auerbach, and his work hasn't impacted the musical landscape as much as Antonoff or Billie Eilish's brother, Finneas, or some producers who weren't even nominated, like Wheezy. Wheezy out of here. Big time rap producer, kind of in that Metro Boomin style, but he should have been nominated this year. I'll drop a video about that later. But John Hill has produced 1 or 2 songs on cool projects from Young the Giant, Carly Rae Jepsen, and Khalid. Finneas O'Connell is Billie Eilish's older brother who produced her entire Grammy-nominated album, When We Fall Asleep, Where Do We Go? The whole thing. And this album's production is so distinct, he was at the helm of that cool, menacing electronic sound. Aside from this album, which is the primary reason he's nominated here, he also produced Selena Gomez's lead single, Lose You to Love Me, from her new album, Rare, and a couple songs from Camila Cabello's new album, Romance. And he also has his solo work as well. He's got easily one of the 2 biggest albums produced by this entire list of nominees, the other being Lana Del Rey's Norman Effing Rockwell, produced by Jack Antonoff. I think that if Billie Eilish's album wins Album of the Year, then Finneas can win this award. If it doesn't, then it's hard to imagine him earning this, regardless of how excellent the album's production is. If Lana Del Rey's album wins Album of the Year, then how can you give this award to Finneas over Jack Antonoff, who not only produced Lana's album, but also Taylor Swift's Lover? Unless the unique and alternative, groundbreaking style of Finneas' Eilish production outmerits the critical edge that Lana's album might have over hers. Finneas produced one hell of an album. I don't know if that'll be enough to win him this Producer of the Year award this year, unless this year becomes an Eilish sweep over the major categories, and this one, which would be huge. And those major categories, by the way, are Record of the Year, Song of the Year, Album of the Year, and Best New Artist. Billie Eilish has a chance to win all 4 of those, as does Lizzo with 'Cause I Love You. Which brings us to Ricky Reed. Ricky Reed is our final nominee, and his biggest accomplishment of the year was producing nearly half of Lizzo's Grammy-nominated 'Cause I Love You album, including the album's 2 hits, Juice and the #1 Truth Hurts. He also produced a couple songs from folk pop artist Maggie Rogers' debut album, Heard It in the Past Life. Also produced 1 song on Camila Cabello's new album, half of Leon Bridges' 2018 album, Good Thing, although I believe that was released a little too long ago to be considered here. He produced a new FIDLAR album. FIDLAR is a pretty dope garage punk band from LA. So, very diverse production choices here, from FIDLAR's pop punk to Lizzo's soul pop hip hop. He also produced individual tracks for SZA, X-Ambassadors, and Maren Morris. Excellent 2019 for Reed, with his biggest accomplishment by far being his production for Lizzo, one of 2019's 2 biggest breakout stars, along with Billie Eilish. And as I mentioned, that 'Cause I Love You album from Lizzo has Lizzo nominated in all 4 major categories, along with Eilish. So who should win this award? Who do I think is going to win this award? I think that Jack Antonoff, by producing Lana Del Rey and Taylor Swift's album, should win this award. And it's actually kind of crazy that this is his first nomination in this category. He should have at least been nominated a couple years ago for doing Lord's melodrama, Swift's Reputation, and a few St. Vincent songs from Mass Education. If they don't give it to him, I think they'll give it to Finneas for his production on the Billie Eilish album. But this year, in his first nomination, Jack Antonoff should win Producer of the Year non-classical. I'll drop a later video on the absence of hip-hop producers from this list of nominees, namely the producer Wheezy. Let me know what you think of this list of nominees, and if you think anyone else is deserving. DJ Mustard, perhaps? Also, please like the video, subscribe if you dig the channel. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.